Monica, welcome to the Calm Mom podcast. I'm so grateful to have you with us today.
Yeah, I am so glad to be here, and I feel like I'm having a moment. I'm like, we've connected. I was so happy to have you on the show, and there's so much that we just connected with right away. So I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah, so for you guys listening right before we hit record here, Monica and I were together recording an episode for her podcast. And it's just, I know, our worlds intersect in so many different ways. So I think we're going to have a tinge of a focus on perfectionism and habit formation today, but really, I'm believing that whatever it is that comes up and whatever bunny trails we kind of follow,
Yeah.
are going to be really helpful to the women listening. So before we jump into that, I know you're a mom of five. You were just sharing that with me. You are, a brilliant leader and coach. You're wearing a lot of hats. Tell us more about it, all of it, your passion, the work that you're doing. You,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of bunny trails. Like speaking of bunny trails, I feel like I'm a woman of many bunny trails interests in my mind. But really what I think people would probably like to know about me is starting professionally. I'm primarily a podcaster at About Progress. And the reason why I started that was because I did not like how I was showing up to my children.
hmm,
It's so interesting that so much of my work came just down to me hating that spilled milk would make me want to run away
yeah,
from my
yeah,
entire life,
I can relate.
and how I needed to fix that.
Yeah.
And a big part of how it started is realizing that even though I thought I was not an achiever at that
Mm,
moment in my life, I was actually still a perfectionist.
yeah.
And that perfectionism had kept me on the sidelines for almost 10 years to that point,
Hmm.
and how I needed to make some deep changes to how I was approaching my life and my own personal growth, including just even putting myself back on the list again, which was a
Mm,
huge part of my healing. And now it's been almost 9 years into this work. It's became a years long experiment that has totally changed my life, of learning that progress is not only possible outside of perfectionism,
yeah.
it is the way of
Yeah.
making room for failure, is how you actually grow exponentially over time. And I can
That's
confidently
right.
say that I have. And now I don't cry about spilled milk all the time. I mean, sometimes.
And that's a win. I love it.
It is a win.
Okay, so let's talk about it. I think sometimes when we hear about perfectionism or we think about ourselves in relation to perfectionism, I think we don't appreciate its subtlety. Because I think a lot of
Uh-huh.
times we're like, I'm not a perfectionist. Like my house doesn't look like Pinterest, or I'm not a perfectionist. I,
Yeah.
can let an email go without having a period at the end of it or whatever it is, right? That we tell ourselves. But I think it's a lot more insidious, and I think it's a lot more kind of built into ways that are um at girls kind of in society, right? And we're like, we're given that pat on the back for a lot of these
Yes.
tendencies. So can you talk to us a little bit about that, and then also like some of the ways that it commonly shows up that might be light bulbs for people listening?
Yeah, let's get you all the light bulbs, because I think we all need them, especially when it comes to
Yeah.
perfectionism. Because as you said, it is such an idealized trait that
Mm-hmm.
so many of us aspire to. And I know that was me for the first 20 years of my life. I was
Yeah.
definitely the stereotypical perfectionist, the overachieving kind. And that's what we typically deem as worthy of being labeled as a perfectionist, is someone who is very high achieving, very goals oriented, very, you know, type A, and
Mm-hmm.
just super perfect with all the things on the outside. And while that can be true, and how a lot of perfectionists are manifesting perfectionism, it really is a spectrum.
Mm.
And there is the non-stereotypical kind, which is often, I think you could say, the unachieving kinds, people who
Mm.
may qualify themselves as lazy or never finishers, or people who are
Yeah.
waiting in the sidelines.
Yeah.
But what often happens with perfectionism is we're really all of it. Like, we alternate this on this pendulum swinging from all to nothing or something in between. But
Yeah.
regardless of where you are on that pendulum swing, and as with it, the spectrum of
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism, the root of is the same. And perfectionism, of course, like if you're going to look at it in psychological terms, it's like a coping mechanism. It can be a trauma response, all those things.
Yeah.
But the root for all of it is that perfectionism is a misplacement of identity. We are
Mm.
misplacing our sense of self and who we are on our outcomes,
Yeah.
whether we have them or we don't,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what the underachieving perfectionists are really doing. They're placing their identity off of their lack of outcomes or their failures.
Yeah.
Um, and the overachieving ones are still doing that, but often they're just trying to run away from what they think is the failures too. So either way, it's like a lose-lose
Yeah.
situation, because the truth is, no matter what your achievements are, even if you are aspiring to be a perfectionist, you will never arrive. You
Yeah.
will never get to a place where you're like, ta-da, I made it. I am here. This is who I am. Things will never change. No, you're just on a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
So whether you're on that wheel or you're just watching it swirl by, there's a lot of things you can watch for. And I think it really does come back to this root in many ways of, how am I misplacing who I am on my outcomes, and kind of recognizing where that's happening in your life,
Yeah.
whether you are stuck on the hustle culture wheel and you are tired and exhausted and you are anxious and you are short tempered and all those things,
Mm-hmm.
or you are feeling stuck and you are anxious in a different way. You are over analyzing. You are comparing yourself. Those are some of the outward signs that you can look
Mm-hmm.
for, whether or not where you are on this spectrum of
Yeah.
perfectionism. But I mean, really, there's so many names you can put to it. And I talked about this with being an over functioning, anxious person, and how there's so much overlap there. But I mean, just look at your life. If you don't feel like yourself, this could be a big part of it.
Yeah, I agree. Um, as someone who has run a lot of perfectionistic patterns herself, I
Yeah.
am 5 weeks into homeschooling my kids.
Oh,
And it's
yes.
so interesting because it's not constant, but it'll like pop up where I'm like, okay, is this like a perfectionistic thing coming up that I'm
Mm,
like speaking into or putting on them? Or am I trying to teach them about, excellence or putting forth their best
yeah.
effort or doing work well? And they're 6 and 7. But I think a lot of us kind of have this idea, well, like, I'm not a perfectionist, but I just want things to be done excellently, which i.e.
Yeah.
perfectly, or whatever that idea is. But I also think there's a healthy level of having like a spirit of doing things well and a spirit of excellence. Where does the line start to cross and it
Hmm.
becomes perfectionism?
There is definitely a line, but I would actually say one of the lines to be aware of is that not trying, not
Mm.
aspiring is perfectionism. Okay. So like
Like
settling,
whack-a-mole. It's like, that's perfectionism. That's
yeah.
perfectionism.
Yeah. So like being like, well, why? I guess I shouldn't try, right? Okay, good, because that's perfectionism. So I will just like don't try. That's what
Yeah.
I did for 10 years. And,
Uh,
when I was 20, I got diagnosed with multiple eating disorders, and with them, a lot of mental health issues.
mhm,
And my healing took a long time.
mhm.
And as part of that healing, I went to the nothing side of
Okay.
perfectionism. And it came about because of being afraid. I
Yeah.
was afraid of trying.
Oh, yeah.
And I was afraid of what I thought the cost was
Mhm.
to trying. I thought it only came and only looked a certain way. But when I approached 30 and I felt the same I did when I was 20,
Yeah.
I just didn't have the outward achievements to show for the anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation I was experiencing.
Mhm.
It helped me see like that's perfectionism too. Either
Wow.
way, I am caught up in
Yeah.
what I think it looks like to grow, that it
Yeah.
only looks a certain way.
Yeah.
And so when I either ascribe to that and I pay a price for it, or I don't ascribe to it and I pay the price for that, it's still
Mhm.
perfectionism. So really, to help you navigate the line, what you have to make room for is failure.
Yeah.
Yes, we want to grow, we want to develop. This is part
Mhm.
of our nature of being human. I
Yeah.
think it is hardwired in our cells that we need to grow,
Mhm.
that we really need to progress. And if we
Agreed.
aren't, we're feeling it. Like
Yeah.
we know when we're not. So we need to lean into that, but from a different place,
Mhm.
knowing that our sense of self is separate from our
Mhm.
outcomes,
Mhm.
knowing that the transformation doesn't lie in the outcomes, it lies in the process
Mhm.
of working towards outcomes we want.
Yeah.
And as part of being able to stay in that process
Mhm.
is that failure piece. We have to make room for failure. We have to change our relationship with
Yeah.
what it looks like to fail. And it's not fun. Like, I don't love failing.
Yeah.
It's not like a yippee, I failed again. I fail all the time. But it means different things to me. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm a failure. It's a
Right.
sign that I can change some things. I may need to
Mhm.
tweak some things. I may need to switch whole directions, or maybe even the goal post needs to be moved or
Yeah.
changed completely. So if we shift our relationship with failure, then we'll be able to better navigate what that line is for ourselves.
Mm.
Because when we are afraid of failure, we're coming from a place of fear, and that's when we're on the hamster wheel or we're just watching it go by. So we can better watch for the signs of, am I navigating everything from a place of fear?
Yeah.
Am I making space for failure? And if not, or if so, then you'll be able to better know where you are on that line.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of it is just the energy toward it, right? It's like, what's the
Yes.
energy toward, is it the perfectionism or the energy toward excellence? And a lot of that
Yeah.
shows up in the relationship with failure and the risks you're willing to take. And is it coming from fear or not? It's so wise. Um, I totally lost my train of thought of what I was going to ask next because you had such something so good in there that I wanted to say. Da, da, da. Maybe it'll come if I go on.
I can give an example if that helps.
Yeah, see if it comes back because I really want to get to it.
Okay.
But go, give an example, and if it comes back, I'll go there, and if it doesn't come back, we'll move on. Thank you.
Sure. So that conundrum you just painted is something that I was asking myself this morning,
Mm.
because I have my 11-year-old was practicing the piano before school, and he just loves to play the parts that he's good at
Ah,
and over and over and over.
yeah.
And our piano's in the basement, weirdly.
Yeah.
So I was just like, getting everyone else ready for school, and yelling down the stairwell, play the bad parts, like play the hard parts and play those longer and slower. And
Yeah.
as I'm like yelling that down the stairwell so he can hear me, I'm thinking like, now am I being a tiger mom?
Yeah.
Or am I being a mom who's teaching her kids how to persist?
Yeah.
And, in that moment, I
Good.
could acknowledge, like, maybe I should go down next time and actually talk to him. I have had that conversation, to be honest, several times face to face. So that was more of a reminder. Okay. Not like a teaching moment. But yeah, I think that paints a picture to me. Like, the
Mm.
difference is welcoming room for being willing to sit in the discomfort of the
Yeah.
things we're not good at, to
Yes.
be willing to not be good at things so that we can improve and get better.
Yes.
To acknowledge that this is how we get better.
Yeah.
We have to make room for failure.
Yeah, I love that so much. And it's also every time something like that happens, it's like this little, we're proving to our nervous system and our amygdala, like, that was uncomfortable and I didn't die, right? It's like, it's
Yeah.
actually okay to do this every time. As you're sharing this story with your child and as you're sharing the difference between perfectionism and excellence, the idea of leaning into that discomfort and embracing the messy middle and doing the things that we prefer to not do because they don't make us look as good or whatever it is. I have a lot of clients that I work with and it's so fun to do, but so much of their work is just like going out and doing really messy, uncomfortable things, right? To
Mm-hmm.
like grow and expand that edge for them. And I would love to hear from you if there's people listening that are like, yeah, I run a lot of these patterns and I really resonate. What are some of your favorite ways to invite people to get into that space where they can play around with the messy and help, prove to themselves that the less than perfect scenario is okay and it is
Mm-hmm.
safe and we can do this and it'll get easier with consistency?
Yeah, some things are by the moment,
Mm.
being aware of, oh, here I am avoiding this thing because I think I'm going to mess up. So,
Yeah.
or here I am trying to just go, 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 do because I'm also afraid of failure. So,
Mm.
oh, being aware and then being able to shift the way, even sometimes we do the same action, but it feels different because we're coming
Yeah.
at it from a different internal place. And as part of that, being willing to prove yourself wrong, that you can make space for failure and it be okay. Just like you
Yeah.
said, it's almost like exposure therapy to yourself, right? Like, I
Yeah.
can be okay here. So yeah, minute to minute, things really help. But there's actually a bigger thing that many people can take on that can help them practice this in a funner and exploratory way, because I
Okay.
think that sense of exploration is really important as you're rewiring the way you look at yourself,
Yeah.
tied to how you take action.
Yeah.
And this went back to when I was approaching 30 and I was like, oh crap, I am a perfectionist and I need to change. And also, as I was realizing I was a perfectionist, I like took stock of all the things I had sat on the sidelines of my
Wow.
life for.
Mm.
And I wanted to do something about it. So I created a 30 before 30 list, 30 things I wanted to do in the 6 months before I turned 30. And my community now knows this as the do something list,
Okay.
because what you do is you create a list of things that you have put on the sidelines, whether they're
Mm.
things you used to do as a kid and you want to bring them back, or things you've never tried because of fear of
Ah,
failure, parts
yes.
of yourself that you want to explore or bring back or bring into your life. And the whole point is exploration, not completion. I have done this list for now, it'll be my ninth year. I
I'm
have
adopting this.
never,
This is
yeah,
brilliant.
it really, okay, I'm not going to oversell it, but it is life changing. And I'll get
Yeah.
back to that. But this is my ninth year. I have never completed a list.
Do you make a new list every year for your
I do make
birthday?
a new list
Okay.
every year. Some women make a list like a season for
Okay.
a quarter or season. I prefer to do one for the year because
Yeah.
as part of this, the list is allowed to change. It's a
Yeah.
breathing document.
Yeah. It's
I
not
tweak
perfect.
mine a couple times. Yeah, like I'm like, oh, that was unrealistic.
Uh-huh.
Okay. The thing about this list is no goals are allowed. And
Wow.
what freed this for me is because I had been a person who didn't make goals for almost 10 years because
Yeah.
I was afraid of what I thought I would have to do to achieve those goals. And I didn't
Yeah.
want to get back to that place I did, when I was almost 20. I was like, I can't
Yeah.
do that again. I don't want to be that person again. So having something that pushed me to do something, but outside of goals, helped me make space for this failure we talked about.
Mhm.
Because on my list were things like make 20 new recipes, go to an adult ballet class, because I used to dance until I turned 18. And then I
Ah,
stopped completely, even though it was my entire life, because of this perfectionist side of me. And I didn't
mm.
dance for 10 years. So I was like, well, I want to go to adult dance class. I want to take a watercoloring class. I want to go to a museum again. I want to try ice cream flavors. Like none of
Oh,
these are
so good.
headline worthy, right? This is not your bucket list item.
They're
This is not,
subtle, but they're so powerful.
they are so
Yeah.
powerful. Okay. But so it's not like go kiss someone at the top of the Eiffel Tower or hike Mount Kilimanjaro. Those are bucket list. And
Yeah,
those may
yeah.
even be goals. It's not even run a marathon. I'm sorry. That's great. But put it on a goals list, not a do something list.
Okay.
This is about exploration. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the process of doing my first list, guess what I found? It was so magical. I found that even failing at these things somehow still gave me more confidence.
Come on.
Going to that adult ballet class and not even being able to touch my toes anymore, let alone leap into the air,
Yeah.
because it was about exploring, I left with a smile on my
You
face.
removed the expectation and the pressure, right? You could
Yeah.
just experience it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes. And it was that way with everything on my list. Like I started doing things I'd always thought about doing, like
Mhm.
writing. And that actually there's a trickle down effect to this. Okay. Because one of the things my do something list led to was my podcast, which is now
Mm.
about 8 years old. I never would have started that goal, which wasn't a goal, right? I never
Yeah.
would have started that goal without being in this place of making a new relationship with failure
Yep.
and exploration. So I highly recommend it. And I will say that list, I've never completed it again. It changed my life and it changes my life every year I do it. There's always a different flavor. There's different things that come up. There's almost themes. There's certain things that saved my life that year, like 2023, sourdough saved my life. 2024, going to cultural events is saving my life. Like going to a
Wow.
concert or a play, I'm just like, it's bringing me back. But it's not just changed my life. It has
Mm.
literally changed hundreds of women's lives in my
Yeah.
community. So if
Mm.
you want kind of a funner push to do that,
Yeah.
make a do something list.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So my community has heard me talk a lot about like three foundational pillars of nervous system health. And these are daily things that I encourage everyone to participate in. And it's movement and it's stillness and it's play.
Hmm.
And when it comes to play, everyone's like, play. I don't have time to play. I don't know what play looks like. I don't want to play Barbies with my kids. And I get all of that. Guys, this is play, right? This
Yes.
is like a list of play. These are just like things that you can explore that light you up, that are fun, that bring out that passion back, that you're like, I love this so much. It's getting me through. It's brilliant. And that's such a great way to like brain dump it and then start to just allow yourself to experience it, and all the different ways that it lights you up. I love it. So
Yeah,
good.
it's, I mean, this is one of those things like take a chance on. I
Yeah.
do have a free training for it. Like, so I walk you through a
Okay.
whole workshop and you have a workbook. It's all free at aboutprogress.com/DSL.
Okay.
Um, and you can make one for 2024. You can just make one for the next season you're in. The one piece of advice I'd give is err on the side of too few things and too many,
Okay.
and make sure you really have the goals on a different list. And I teach you how to do that in the training.
Okay, this is so good. I'm going to link that in the show notes for you guys so you can just click it and go make your
Thanks,
list.
Michelle.
And I'm going to do it too. I'm going to like put on social media and I'm going to tag you. This is so exciting to me.
Good.
And I feel like
Yay.
this is a season where I really would benefit from that. So
Yes.
I'm thankful that you brought that up. Okay, I want to shift a little bit and talk about habits,
Mm.
because I know that's also something that you love to teach about. And I love that you're distinguishing between this list of things where you can kind of play and explore, and making sure that those are not goals. And I think so often, we can get caught up in this thing of like, well, I have habits because they lead to a certain goal that I have, and like that interplay there. But I would just love to hear your take on
Hmm.
habits, where you love to teach about habits, maybe some high impact habits that especially your perfectionists tend to find a lot of value in, that the people who are listening could be like, oh, I think I could start to incorporate that. And that might be really helpful for me.
Well, if you have 6 hours, then let me just share what I have to say. But what I think would be most helpful is to kind of start with why habits,
Okay.
because it was not on my bingo card,
Okay.
right? Like, especially like, I'm not making any goals. I'm making a do something list,
Yeah.
like goals you can wait. Well, so a couple of things surprised me in this years long experiment of choosing progress outside of perfectionism. The whole goal was to know myself again
Mm.
and to feel like myself. So
Yeah.
identity and fulfillment.
Yeah.
Fulfillment to me is feeling like myself. I want you to
Yeah.
be full of yourself. That's
Yeah.
fulfillment.
I
Okay.
love that.
Um, Surprisingly, along the way, became a necessary fact that my habits had to match those two things.
Okay. Yeah.
And I knew myself. I knew how to feel like myself. But if my day to day life wasn't making those two things possible, then they weren't happening. Or
Yeah.
at least I got to a plateau with my personal growth because my sleep is terrible. You
Mm.
know, I was the revenge bedtime procrastinator of all procrastinators, and I could stay up to all hours um, reading old journals from elementary school or being very productive in a weird part of my house. So, I mean, sleep was one of those things. Another thing was, I hate to say it, day planning, which is something I was completely off the table, by the way, in 2023. And I think we'll talk
Yeah.
about that too. But habits to me are not about metrics and prescriptions we have to meet in order to be good people.
Yeah.
Habits are supportive.
Yeah.
So I talked about how identity is knowing yourself, fulfillment is feeling like yourself.
Hmm.
Habits are supporting yourself.
Come on.
It's making those two things possible because
Yes.
habits is what helps us be able to show up as ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can start quite simply. You know, it's not like it can be very overwhelming when you think I'm not a habit person. Listen, neither did I. Like, that's why I stayed away from it. I could show up for my responsibilities with I
Mhm.
used to be a teacher when I was a middle school teacher. And then as a young mom, like I could show up for those responsibilities. But for myself, everything was
Yeah.
on the back burner. So for women who feel similarly, they can be like, I'm
Mhm.
not a habit person. Well, it's probably because you think habits are about metrics and prescriptions, that you
Mhm.
have to be a certain type of person to be a habit person.
Yeah.
But the truth is that habits are for every type of person. Whether
Yes.
you are a mom of a newborn, or you are like a slay it CEO boss, or you are a retired grandma, or you are traveling the world, like
Mhm.
living the coolest experiences, habits are for everybody
Yeah.
because they're just there to support us. And if you can embrace that, it will lead you to know what's next.
Mhm.
And with this, it's to know what will support you of
Yeah.
habits. So
Mhm.
you get to choose. You get to choose. You have choice there. It's not like, well, now I have to be a 5 a.m. wake upper. I have to read books all day. I have to journal and I have to meditate and I have
Uh,
to exercise and meal plan and meal prep and day plan. No, you get to decide
yeah.
which of those habits are going to support you for your time and your season. And once
Mhm.
you decide those habits, then you can decide how, because you don't have to do the same habits the same always. You can
Yeah.
journal in ways that match you, and that journaling can change if you're hitting a different season. And that's where I'm going to bring it back to day planning. One of the trickle down effects of working on progress outside of perfectionism was day planning again.
Okay.
Because perfectionist Monica was like time blocking and
Yeah.
writing every single thing down. I
Right.
lived and died by my planner.
Right.
And then once I hit that big, like, oh, I'm like, it's either change or die, basically,
Mm.
right? Moment when I was 20, I didn't day plan. I
Yeah.
didn't day plan at all for 10 years. So I had to day plan in a different way. And bringing that back into my life helped me have less of a mental load.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just about being more productive. It was like
Yeah.
having less things on my mind. It helped me know what to do in a day, but also what not to do. It gave me the clarity I needed to
Mm-hmm.
function better. But 2023 was a baseline year for me. That
Mm-hmm.
meant it was like what does it take to just make sure I am equipped enough to go through this survival period? It's a survival period because I had my fifth kid, and you would think I'd know what to expect, but he really surprised me. I feel like that's the theme of this interview. Surprise! Like, surprise, this is your fifth child, and you will feel like you have never had a child in your life and you
Wow.
don't know what you're doing, and your whole
Mm.
life feels completely different and you don't
Wow.
know how to make it. So, for me, going back to habits are supportive, I knew the most important habits for me were sleep and movement.
Mm-hmm.
And of those, I had baseline versions of them to match my
Yeah.
baseline season. The
Yeah.
smallest and
It's
simplest
okay.
version, move for 10 minutes,
Yep.
make sure I just showered and got on clean clothes. Great.
Yep.
All the other habits that I had long developed and worked towards over time, they were okay to be on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And gradually over 2023, I brought a lot of them back. And now I'm still to 2024, tightening them up and bringing others back. I did bring back journaling, but I have to tell you, the baseline's enough for me. Just writing one line in my journal, like, is all I need because I don't want to relive. I don't want to relive it.
Yeah.
you know?
Was it hard for you to give yourself that permission?
Oh yeah. And this goes back to the progress outside of perfectionism whole experiment, how we have to
Yeah.
prove ourselves wrong, right?
Yeah.
Baselines are one of the things I have to really push women on. But if you have a baseline, not only do you have the consistency you need to have a habit, you have the consistency to build more towards your ideal in
Yeah.
ways that are sustainable and longer lasting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's making room for flexibility is what makes consistency possible in all areas
Yeah.
of your life,
Yeah.
habits included.
Mm. This is so good. And I feel
Was
like
that
it's
a
so
fire hose?
needed.
I tried not to. I was like trying,
No, it
not
was
sure.
fantastic. It was fantastic because I think in our own way we can all relate to that. We've all had seasons that have just like put us on our butts and out of nowhere, the surprise seasons, and
Yeah.
you
And me,
have to
even as a
choose.
habit professional, like
Yeah.
I like have taught a habit course for years. I've coached women
Yeah.
on this, and even me was like, "Whoop, this is a butt year."
Yeah. I love that. And I can think of, especially in the stages of having really young children or newborns or postpartum, for me that was one of my biggest like naiveties is was like, yeah, it'll change a little bit, but I'll just be able to get back to like, my body was like shut down, shutting her down.
Yeah, yeah,
Not gonna happen. And I think we just to grant ourselves the permission to show up differently in different seasons. We slap self-care on so many other things, but that's like real self-care, right? That's like real self-compassion. And I love that you shared that with us, because I think we can find ourselves in those seasons, and if you haven't been in one in a minute, you're probably going to be in one
I
at
know. That's
some
how
point
life is,
again.
right?
It's just life. Yeah, it is. It really is. So I think that's really helpful, a really good permission slip for people listening. What's your baseline in the things that you really need to feel
That matter
okay, and then
most.
just do,
Hmm.
yeah, just hit that baseline, and that's good. um I have a question when it comes to kind of goals and
Hmm.
perfectionism and awareness. If you have these habits that you want to partake in regularly and these goals that you want to hit, and you know that you tend to run perfectionistic patterns, and you're starting to get this new awareness, right? You've listened to Monica and you're like, oh, I'm starting to notice like when that perfectionism pops up. Is the answer to push through, or is that, I guess my real question is that ever not the response? Like, is it ever not appropriate to like push through and just be like, I'm just gonna do it even though I'm scared, or I'm just gonna, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. I feel like this is where a big part of changing the way we view progress is changing the way we view ourselves, right?
Mm,
So if we are pushing as a form of self betrayal, then that's wrong.
yeah.
Okay. So if we are pushing we because we are so afraid, like if it's out
Yeah.
of fear, then
Yeah.
we know that's not okay. If it's out of if like we're betraying what we really know we want and need, then that's not good, right?
Yeah.
So
Agreed. Yeah.
a lot of this comes back to, we talked about the do something list is about exploration, but so is all this new way of making
Yes.
progress in your life, whether
Yeah.
it's goal making or you want to get back into habits again, or you're making a career shift or you want to go back to school.
Yeah.
It's going to force you to be stretched, right?
Yeah.
But I like to think of it, I guess I'll give you a little, no, I guess I don't have one. I usually have an elastic band on my hand, but if you think of an elastic band, right?
Yeah.
If you stretch it just enough and you do that over and over just enough, it will gradually lengthen. So it will
Hmm.
make space.
Yeah.
Okay. So you will feel like you can grow without it being damaged. But if you go too much too quick, it's going to
Yeah.
snap.
Right.
So if you're in that snap place, that is when it is more than okay to not push through.
Yeah.
It is more than okay to take a step back and
Hmm.
evaluate what actually does matter, because the self betrayal route just turns into snapping. Okay, you will pay the price for it. So that's what we have to acknowledge. What price am I paying by
Mm.
persisting?
Yeah.
And if the price is myself and the things I care the most about, then no, it
Oh,
is not
that's so
worth
good.
it.
Yeah, that's such a great visual. And I love that you shared that, because I think a lot of times when we're stuck in perfectionism, we want to do everything perfectly, then we're gonna push, right? I'm
Yeah,
even gonna like heal from my perfectionism perfectly and
by
push through and
pushing.
do all these yeah. And this is just a reminder to like check in, come
Yeah.
back home, right? Be mindful about this, explore where it's coming from, which I think is so wise. I've learned so much from you in like 30 minutes. Thank you for teaching us. And thank you for doing it in a way that just feels really real.
Oh, I'm glad to
And
hear
just
it.
like, yeah, I think sometimes we can talk about these things in a very like professory way.
Mm,
But I think the truth of it is, myself and everyone listening, like, this is so real for us,
yeah.
so it's like just so refreshing to hear from you. I'm going to link the DSL sheet, but can you let everyone know, especially if they're struggling with perfectionism, where they can find you and keep learning from you and connect with you?
Yes. Go look for me on your podcast feed. Go look for About Progress and you'll
Yeah.
find me. And like I said, we talk a lot about identity, fulfillment, and habits, but it's fun. It's a great
Yeah.
community and we learn a lot. And I'm also on Instagram at About Progress.
Awesome. And you have a course, right? Or
Yeah, so I
program?
have a
Okay.
live course that I teach called the Sticky Habit Intensive. And since it's live, I only teach it 2 or 3 times a year. So
Okay.
it will happen again in the new year. And you can get on a wait list for that easily at aboutprogress.com/intensive.
Perfect. Okay. So I'll link the podcast here
I
for
mean,
you
so
guys
many
too, so you
things.
can go
Yes.
check it out. That's awesome. Yeah. You're already listening to podcasts, so I know that will be easy
That's
for
most
you, and that'll be
important.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. It's been such a joy, such a pleasure. Thanks for being with us, Monica. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for giving me the time, and to be able to connect with your community is a special thing for me. So thank you for those who
Mhm.
are listening today.
Beautiful.